So after our build video yesterday, I was told that all of my builds were not catered to in-game. Oh, really? Needless to say, this video is for the folks that want an in-game build. Something that can help them solo things with ease, allowing even my potato self to get through this Nightfall solo. Now, granted, it's only a Master Nightfall. I'm not esoteric, man, but I will say, if a build can get me through it, it will 100% get you through it. So we're actually on the Hunter class today. That's right, I hate to say it. And today we're gonna be taking advantage of Top Tree Arc Strider and the exotic Assassin's Cow, which grants us the exotic perk Vanishing Execution. Arc, Solar, and Void Melee Final Blows grant you invisibility and restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and Final Blows against more powerful targets increases the duration of that invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. Now, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I wasn't really looking at this exotic for this build. I was actually rocking Liar's Handshake, considering that Liar's Handshake is one of the best exotics on the Hunter class for beefing up that melee damage, combined with things like 1-2 punch. Oh, it's nasty. Unfortunately, despite how lethal that may be, and with all the mods that I was pairing with it to give me overshields and such, I was still getting chewed up inside of this Master Nightfall. That champion, before I can even get to him and close the gap, he would just wreck me. So big shout out to XKRS. He's got a YouTube channel. He sent me like 3 different messages yesterday telling me that Assassin's Cow is actually the way to go. Each message I doubted him, but finally I was like, you know what? Let's just give it a try. So first up, we're pairing this with Top Tree Arc Strider with Combination Blow, kill an enemy with his melee ability to trigger health regeneration, and it also increases your melee damage temporarily. Stacks up to 3 times. Now the beautiful thing about this is the synergy that's found on this subclass. You've got Combat Flow, which allows for your dodge ability to recharge on melee kills. You've got Gambler's Dodge, which gives us back our entire melee ability when dodging near enemies. And then you got Deadly Reach, which increases that melee range, allowing you to lunge further to strike those enemies. But the main thing to take away from this is that Combination Blow stacks up to 3 times. Yes, with each stack, you get an increase there in damage. So the damage is still there, despite us not having Liar's Handshake. With Cross Counter, just Combination Blow by itself is still doing enough damage when you combine it with things like 1-2 punch. I'm actually taking advantage of my last man standing here, which kind of was a double whammy for me in this Nightfall. Number 1, it does solar damage, which was needed against these wizards with solar shields. Number 2, it's also an aggressive shotgun, so it's doing a little more damage per shot before following up with that melee. So essentially, I would run in there, get some melee kills off, proc Combination Blow, which by the way has a very nice duration of 20 seconds. But if you notice, a Warmind cell is popping up every now and then. That's right, we're taking advantage of Tyrant Surge yet again. Dealing damage with Arc Melee, your Super, or Grenade abilities will spawn a Warmind cell. A fantastic artifact mod. I'm gonna cry when it goes away next season, but we're solely focusing on this to spawn us those Warmind cells. Now, when a Warmind cell actually pops up, you have a couple of options. You can sit there and shoot it, which upon exploding will kill a bunch of ads, or you can double dip on it, which is what I'm doing. Essentially, collecting the Warmind cell grants me an overshield with Sheltering Energy. This is a fantastic mod here, which kind of stacks on with that invisibility. Now, the overshield will stop giving yourself an overshield, say for instance, if you take any type of damage, right? Which is why I was having such a hard time with Liar's Handshake. I was still visible to the enemy. So unfortunately, it would just keep driving that overshield down and wouldn't let it regenerate all the way up unless I took cover. With the invisibility though, given to us by Assassin's Cow, this allowed me to get my overshield back completely. Now, it's not necessary, but the overshield is still very nice for those moments when you do come out of your invisibility. Having that little bit of extra protection there will keep you alive in those hairy situations when a bunch of ads are just collapsing on you. And I felt it was necessary to rock with this melee-based build because you're just right there in your enemies' faces. Now, upon collecting that Warmind mod, I don't just want to grant myself an overshield. I also want to grant myself a little bit of damage, which takes us to our next mod, Modular Lightning. This actually states that collecting a Warmind cell creates a burst of chaining arc energy around you, which actually does some fantastic damage. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe Modular Lightning procs Tyrant Surge. At least I didn't think it did, which I was also meleeing a bunch, and there is a slight cooldown on how often you can spawn a Warmind cell with Tyrant Surge, but that little bit of extra damage does a fantastic job when you're in the midst of hitting a champion or some other meaty target. The Warmind cell falls on you, and it just has enough damage there to clean up the trash ads that are trying to collapse on you. Now, I did combine this this with actually the global reach mod, which actually allows our war mod cells here to have a larger distance with its effect, I noticed an improvement for sure, especially like going down into caves and stuff like that, where there's a lot of thrall. I'm not sure how much global reach affects our other war mod mods. For modular lightning though, it doesn't proc all at once. There's like a delay, right? It continually keeps proccing. Similar to something like Dune Marchers, global reach seems to extend that range and that duration a little bit longer. I noticed that that duration seemed to last longer. So I felt like it was extremely beneficial. Now, granted, you can mismatch other things. Considering we are dealing with in-game content here, and you are going up against a number of different champions, you could also take advantage of the Hammer of the War Mod artifact mod, which allows you to cause disruption and stagger both overload champions and unstoppable champions when you detonate your War Mod cells. But considering that I was actually just rocking Leviathan's Breath here, the stun mod unstoppable champions, at least this week, I wasn't really relying on that mod. Now, granted, in future Nightfalls, you may want to swap that out. So how good is this build right here? Because I know I'm throwing a lot of different things at you. The main thing is, how good is the combination of Assassin's Cowl with 1-2 punch and overshield from Sheltering Energy and Tyrant Search? Is it worth using? Absolutely. I've tried to do this Nightfall a number of different ways with different builds. No build has done it as easily as this one. Now, granted, I'm also taking advantage of Thunder Coil too, which does increase our melee damage. So that in combination with Combination Blow, oh baby, that just flowed, man. Those things combined together is really what's allowing this build to thrive in this sandbox. Now, granted, next season, when we won't have Thunder Coil and we won't have these mods, that's what's so crazy. This build probably won't be good. Kind of sucks, but it's the perfect storm this season, especially with that invisibility there from Assassin's Cowl. That invisibility is so OP inside of PvE. You'll literally be in the middle of a gunfight. The moment you go invisible, 9 times out of 10, everything will just stop shooting and be confused outside of like a few things. Most of the time, if anything's still shooting, they're just shooting where you just were. So if you're moving a bunch and you're invisible, you're good, man. And considering the duration there from both cross counter and Sheltering Energy, both being 20 full seconds, you've got plenty of time after you go invisible to just sit down and wait. Wait till you get your health back up. Hell, wait to get your overshield all the way back up before pushing. Now, even though this build is really good, you're not just gonna be able to walk into a Nightfall, at least not for the master level Nightfall and higher, and just start smacking everything down. You know, you gotta learn the method to the madness, the way enemies spawn, and it starts to become kind of like a contest, right? You're like, oh, maybe I could trim off a few minutes here or a few minutes there. I think the fastest we got one done today was like 15 minutes, a little less than 15. And I would say to do that solo, I think it's pretty good. Obviously, having a fire team is much more efficient. I do wonder how this build would work if, say, the entire fire team was rocking it. If the entire fire team was going invisible, pushing in together, getting 1-2 punch, doing a hell of a lot of damage. Even at 10:30 Nightfalls, this could potentially be a strat. And it's probably something I'm gonna try this week and next week as we get closer to our Grandmaster Nightfalls. I know no one really cares about it, and I completely understand why. Not much incentive there, but I really want to narrow down, like over the next week, on which builds are the best builds to bring inside of our in-game content. Yesterday, we showed Infinite Greaves, which is fun, but it's super risky. There's no elusiveness. A Titan going into shoulder charge, even inside of PvE, is very linear. Whereas like a Hunter, especially a Hunter that's going invisible, has a lot of ways to avoid damage and close that gap effectively. Overall, guys, this was by far the best PvE build I have used in this sandbox, but it gets better. We've got a few other builds. We're actually going to be focusing more on the solar mods, as some of our subclasses, whether intentionally or non-intentionally, are pairing with those mods, thus resulting in major artillery. If you have any build suggestions, if you've been using something such as XKRS here, who's been using pretty much this build this entire season, and you know it works very effectively in in-game content, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's on Twitter, Discord. This guy even sent me an email because he wanted me to see Assassin's Cowl so bad, and I'm glad I saw it, because it really did make all the difference. Some of you are probably gonna ask, is it possible to tank the damage with things like Sheltering Energy and still use Liar's Handshake? I did try it, guys. I tried it, man. I tried Sheltering Energy. I even went a step further. Listen to this. I went a step further and utilized Protective Light with Sheltering Energy, hoping that would keep me alive. It did all right but I still wasn't able to get through this Nightfall with that build. Not at least completely meleeing, right? Like you can get through this Nightfall just shooting things, but obviously right here, we're just trying to ape every single thing. So I did try to utilize both of those things together while simultaneously keeping the lethality there of Liar's Handshake. Unfortunately, even proccing both of those things together, I was not able to effectively complete this Nightfall, at least as a solo player. But I would assume as effective as Assassin's Cowl in this build is as a solo player, it's probably going to be equally as effective with the team. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.